Two mysterious deaths, millions of dollars at stake, and a lawsuit claiming it was all a deadly plot to collect an inheritance. Now the family says they want justice. Last September, then 22-year-old Nathan Carman went out fishing with his mother off the coast of Rhode Island. A week later, he was rescued off Martha's Vineyard after he said his boat sank and he could not find his mother. 3 years earlier, Nathan's grandfather was shot multiple times and killed in his Connecticut home. Nathan was the last person known to have seen him alive and had recently bought a gun with a caliber that matched the murder weapon, which he did not tell police about. But in neither case was Nathan Carman charged. But his grandfather left behind a $44 million estate, millions of which he would be in line to get upon his mother's death. And that's the focus of a lawsuit filed this week by Nathan's three aunts, who are saying they are seeking justice by blocking him from collecting any money from his mother and grandfather's estate. Joining me now is Dan Small, Dan's partner at Collin & Knight. He's representing the three women. We also reached out to Nathan Carman's attorney to invite him on, but did not get a response. Dan, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Just so I'm clear, to win this, you have to prove that Nathan Carman was responsible for either the murder of his grandfather or the death of his mother. Am I not right about that?
That's correct. This is a civil case. We have to prove, we've alleged that he was responsible for his grandfather's murder.
But if it turns out, you're a former prosecutor.
Yes.
If the prosecutors couldn't make the case, my understanding is the police brought an arrest warrant to the prosecutor in the case of the grandfather. It was returned unsigned by the prosecutor. If the prosecutor couldn't make the case, what makes you think you can make the case? I know it's a civil proceeding, but why are you going to be able to do what a prosecutor, who I assume wanted to find the person responsible, couldn't do?
Well, you're right. The police believed there was enough evidence to bring a criminal case.
But the prosecutor
didn't. That's a close call. But they're under very different standards. This is a civil case. No one goes to jail, and therefore the result is different and the standard is different. Our standard in a civil case is preponderance of the evidence. That's a very different standard than in a criminal case, which is proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
And by the way, while you allege in your petition that he did kill his grandfather, you suggest that it's likely that he's also responsible for the death of his mother. Is that correct?
That's true. We don't know for sure what happened. She hasn't been pronounced dead officially, and so it's a little bit.
So you're not going to attempt to prove that he's responsible for that, but you are going to attempt to prove that he's responsible for the murder. He murdered his grandfather.
The principal part of the case is
Have you spoken to the prosecutors in this case? As a former prosecutor, those who chose not to charge him in this case?
Yes, I've spoken extensively with them.
And what do they say to you?
We've been cooperating with them 100%. They're difficult cases to bring criminally. One is now 3 years old, and the other, in terms of the mother, there's no boat, there's no body, no one really knows.
But why is the first case, I know it's circumstantial, but the guy purchased, from what I understand, Nathan Carman purchased a weapon of the exact same caliber, as I said at the open, that is responsible for the murder of the death of his grandfather, never told police about it. That seems to me, as a layperson, to be a pretty powerful couple of pieces of circumstantial evidence, no?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some very powerful pieces of evidence here, and that's one of them. Nathan, as you say, John Chakalos was murdered with 3 shots from the .308, the grandfather. Nathan had purchased that gun, or a gun like that, beforehand, but when the police asked him about guns afterwards, he made no mention of it and said it was lost. Jim, that's a high-end $3,000 semi-automatic assault rifle, which the manufacturer describes as built for harsh tactical environments. How do you forget about a weapon like that? And much more, how do you lose it? How do you lose an assault rifle?
Well, but if you and I both agree, you the expert, me not, that that's pretty powerful evidence, I'll ask you again. Then why didn't the prosecutor use it and charge him with the crime of murder of his grandfather?
Because the prosecutor has a tough standard, and they believed, rightly or wrongly, I'm not going to second-guess the prosecutor at this point. I'm hoping that we're continuing to cooperate, we're continuing to try and do everything we can to help. I still hold out hope that they'll bring a case.
Why isn't it just as likely that Nathan Carman's mother, who has disappeared, killed her father, Nathan's grandfather? I mean, she was charged, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, with assaulting the father. Was she not at some point?
They had a fight sometime before.
She was they had a fight. She was charged with assault. Now, ultimately, the father said the grandfather said he wanted the charges dismissed, and they didn't proceed. But isn't that at least as powerful a piece of evidence as to who might be responsible for the murder as what you have on the son?
Oh, no. Just because there was some kind of a family squabble, I don't think that holds anything compared to a lost assault rifle and all the other evidence regarding Nathan.
What would your three clients, again, they are the siblings of Nathan Carman's mother. They're obviously the children, the other children of the grandfather, the father who was killed. What would they do with the money, assuming that it's denied Nathan as the beneficiary of his mother's estate?
Well, that's a key question, Jim. It's so important to emphasize this is to the family. This is not about money. It's about justice. In fact, the three sisters have pledged that if they get any money as a result of this case individually, they will use it either for expenses or for charity. They want no part of profiting from Nathan's crime.
You know, his father, Nathan Carman's father, I believe I've seen quoted saying that the only two people that mattered in the world to his son were his mother and his grandfather. The people you think he killed in one case and is responsible for the disappearance of. How do you get around that?
Were they the only two people who matter, or the only two people who told him what to do and he resented it? There are a lot of questions there, and obviously the relationships will be an issue, but it's not nearly that clear-cut or simple.
Does New Hampshire have one of those son of Sam laws things where if you do commit a crime, you can't benefit from you can't financially benefit for the crime, or they don't?
Well, this is, under New Hampshire law, they have this slayer action where the family can bring, they also have, if you are convicted, then there are certain other ramifications of that. But this is a different action.
Because he hasn't been convicted.
Yeah, he hasn't been convicted. This is a separate civil action.
Last thing for me, Dan, I appreciate your time, is if obviously your clients think Nathan Carman is a very dangerous person. They think, again, he's responsible for the murder of their father and the disappearance, if not the murder, of their sister. Are they worried about their own safety with him? I mean, he's not in custody. He's just up there by himself. Are they worried?
Everyone ought to be worried. There's a killer on the loose.
Are they worried?
Yes, they're worried. And this has been a terribly painful process for them. They didn't want to do this. They don't do it lightly. This has been a painful process, but they believe very strongly that this is the right thing to do. And they believe, frankly, that their father and their sister would have wanted them to take some action and not sit idly by while Nathan Carman profits from his murder.
Dan Small, I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much, as always.
Thank you.